What's this?
Hi, everybody. Mike Pugh here. Welcome to another episode of our discussion series where we're diving into our favorite shows and movies, reminiscing on the glory days of all the stuff that we loved growing up when we were kids and shaped our lives, shaped our childhood, and pretty much got us personally to want to become visual effects artists. So, diving into another special anniversary that's coming up, we're going to be talking about the original Back to the Future. And joining me today, we have Mr. Sun Lu.
Great, Scott.
We got Eric Johnson with us.
Hello.
And we got the man known by only one name, Lucas.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's up, guys? But man, this is a classic film from the 80s. We all grew up with it. We all, I feel, thought that this was a film that blew our minds in terms of how did they do that? How they do those blame tracks on the ground? Did they really almost sacrifice that dog when they went back in time? It was a film that we all enjoy. And I think that, we all can't wait to talk about. Yeah, guys, where were you when you first saw Back to the Future?
Honestly, can't say. I don't remember. It must have been here in the U.S.
I'm too old to remember.
I know I had a VHS of it that we copied from it showing on TV sometime in the early 90s.
Yeah, I must have seen it on TV at home sometime. Because when was it out in theater?
In 85.
Yeah, I was definitely too young for that.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't have been alive for its theatrical release.
Yeah, we must have rented it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I can't say that I remember either. It must have been, sometime around after the Ninja Turtles and before Terminator 2, when, renting places and you can go rent the movie. Or I guess when it came out on TV, you'd catch it. Even at school, I would say at school they would play it on rainy days.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think back in the day, I feel like I saw a lot of films that came out just before I was born on probably like Sunday afternoons on like Fox. I think they had like reruns where they would always show different movies. And I feel like it's definitely like on a TV film is like my first experience watching the film. I was such a huge fan of Michael J. Fox from like Teen Wolf and all these other different movies that he made around that time. I don't remember if I saw the TV show he was on.
Oh, Family Ties? Oh, family. Oh my gosh, I've forgotten it.
Yeah, I remember he was like a huge name as a kid, and
I was right. It was Family Ties. Oh shit! I can't.
Snap.
I knew it was Family something. It's like I know I've seen it.
The only family that matters is Family Matters.
Oh snap! It's happening.
And Michael Gross, the gun nut from Tremors.
Oh yes, good times.
They were good times.
Mm-hmm. That was a show too.
Is this what this podcast is turning into here?
Sitcoms of our youths. No, but I think, oh man, I'm blanking on. I think for the longest time, I'll just call him Doc. I feel like that was, everything I saw him in. And unfortunately, I think at some point he was kind of typecasted for a little bit as the eccentric guy, but, such a phenomenal actor. I feel like he really pulled that film together and brought it to life as this inventor, the scientist, rogue scientist, playing with time travel, even dealing with terrorists.
The Libyans.
The Libyans.
Yeah.
To collect the resources needed to fuel his dream. Yeah, so Lucas, if you don't mind giving us a basic breakdown premise of the film.
Wow, man. The pressure is on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess a good way to start it off is if you've seen the poster, the tagline that they used was, he was never in time for his classes. And one day he wasn't in his time at all. That pretty much sums the movie up. It's just this high school kid that he's friends with this older man for whatever reason. And it's not something you think about when you're watching this movie. But as time goes on and you start letting those ideas and thoughts in your head and you start thinking like, how is it that they're friends?
There's a comic that actually explains it.
Yes, and the stories are wild. And the reasons for them being friends are quite wild. I won't get into it. I can't say for 100% certainty because I haven't read them, but from what I gather is that Doc had Marty selling stuff for him at school to his friends, and that was a way for Marty to make money. The point of the story is if you just accept it for what it is, they are just friends. And what you see on the screen is all they really are. They're just friends. They appreciate each other's time, friendship. By the third movie, you see how they've changed each other's lives. It's something nice to see. a friendship like that, I guess it really doesn't matter, your age. But getting back to this whole thing, eccentric scientist that has spent 30 years of his life and most of, if not his whole fortune, to make his dreams come true. And his dream was to create a time machine because he had some accident in his toilet and a clock hit him on his head. And he had this vision, this thing that just laid out the plans for him and what would make time travel possible. So throughout the course of this movie, they do an experiment at the Foothills Mall. Well, in real life, at the Foothills Mall. So Doc was set out to prove that his machine works. And that was the first time that he had done that. So he needed Marty to be there to document. So he had him pick up the camera so he can record the whole ordeal. The mission was a success, but unfortunately, Doc was also dealing with a bunch of terrorists. And, he cheated them out of what they had hired him to do, which was to build a bomb. So he stole their goods, which was plutonium. And in this universe, plutonium is what you need to get that kick of electricity so you can travel through time. Marty ended up activating the time machine, the DeLorean, by speeding it to 88 miles an hour and accidentally engaging the flux capacitor. So he ends up traveling 30 years in the past. So now he's the same age as his dad and his mom. And that's where the whole movie, the human element sort of takes place. So now he's stuck in a time that he knows nothing about. And he accidentally gets involved into his dad and his mom's lives. So it causes a ripple. I guess he messed up the timeline. So because they didn't meet when they were supposed to, it runs this problem where if they don't fall in love, then he can never be. And his brother and sister can never be. So now the whole task of the middle part of the movie is for him to get his dad and his mom to fall in love. And it's quite an adventure. He's now known as Calvin Klein. He's now no longer Marty McFly. He ends up coming in contact with a high school bully that I guess has always been bullying his dad. So a bunch of things happen. And now his mom has the hots for him. So he's trying his best as he can, to avoid her. And with Doc's help, he gets enlisted into the high school. So now his whole thing is to shadow his dad, sort of give him the wise words that he would get from him later on in life, where, you have to put your mind to it and you can accomplish anything. So his dad writes books. He's creative, but he doesn't really want to show any of this to anyone. And how's he supposed to, write books and give all this good advice if he never opens up? So I guess all this happens because his son traveled back to the past. It's this whole grandfather paradox. Marty's telling his dad the same advice his dad was telling him when he was growing up. So wrap your head around that. The chicken or the egg, which one came first? So anyways, he ends up getting his dad to agree to go to the Enchantment under the sea dance that the high school's having. Only that his dad doesn't know that Lorraine, Marty's mom, doesn't know that they're going to hook up. So his whole plan is to pick his mom up. And he asked his dad to come over and open the car door and sort of stop Marty from getting a little frisky with his mom. And what happens is George is late and the bully, Biff, he's the one that arrives and ends up getting his goons and beats Marty up. And now he's in the front seat with Lorraine fooling around. And this is where George McFly arrives, thinking that Marty McFly was in the car the whole time. And when he opens the door, surprise, surprise, it's the high school bully. And now he's at a crossroads where he sees the girl that he likes being in complete terror and having his hand forced into submission. So as he looks at Lorraine and he's his bully, he just gets enraged and decides to take a swing. And this swing eventually changed the whole course of his life and Lorraine's. And I guess this is the event where Lorraine sort of starts feeling something for him, but it really doesn't kick in until they're in the dance. And George is, he's such a, I don't know, he's still a wimp. He doesn't have any self-confidence. Another school bully sort of comes in and takes her from him as they're dancing. And he just decides he's not going to continue with this and he's going to take control of his life. And he pushes this bully off. And it's like watching night and day. He's a completely new guy. So Lorraine falls for him here. They have their first kiss as their son is slowly disappearing from existence as he's performing in front of the whole school. And this is where movie magic happens and everything, starts falling in place. So now Marty has to get back to the clock tower and meet with Doc Brown because Doc has been setting up the time machines. I think he's been there a week. And when he arrived in the time machine, he had no more plutonium. So they need the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity that can only be gained from the plutonium, because since there's no plutonium in the 50s, the only other way, according to Doc, is a bolt of lightning. And coincidentally, the paper that Marty picks up in the beginning of the movie about these older ladies that are trying to raise money to save the clock tower, it states that in the 50s, there was a lightning strike that hit the tower, and since that night, it stopped working. So for 30 years, it hasn't been working. So his saving grace is this piece of paper where his girlfriend from the 80s wrote her number down, and Marty showed it to Doc, and Doc realizes that this is a hand from the future extending some vital information. And their plan is to harness the power of this lightning bolt into the flux capacitor, a pole that's going to connect to wires that run across the street from the clock tower. So as the lightning hits, it'll travel and in turn allow Marty to travel to the future. So quite exciting part of the movie. He arrives to the present, to 1985, with minimal, I would say, changes in the timeline. His dad's no longer a wimp. His brother and sister have better jobs. In turn, everything in his life got better. But Marty doesn't know any of it because he wasn't there for it. He's just arriving into. So he arrives, he witnesses the Libyans shooting Doc Brown, which starts the whole thing off. And he sees himself almost get shot at, and he jumps into the car as the Libyans start chasing him. And this is, you're now watching from a different vantage point what happened earlier in the movie. So he sees himself disappear in a flash of light, and he goes over to check on his friend. So prior to this little event, Marty had been trying to tell Doc that he's going to die. And Doc just doesn't want to accept any information from the future because he feels that it could collapse the end of the space-time continuum. And he writes this letter to him and leaves it for Doc in the past. But Doc refuses, and he tears up the whole envelope, only to find out when Marty arrives in the present that Doc said F that. He taped it all up. He read the letter and decided to protect himself and therefore not die. So now he's in the present. He sees his quote unquote his new family and everything is great. And he got the truck he wanted in the beginning of the movie. Now he's going to go to the lake with his girlfriend. And this is where pretty much the movie ends, with a cliffhanger where Doc Brown arrives at the front of the house asking him to come with him to the future, 30 years in the future, where something's going on with his kids. So it just raises a lot of questions. If it's going to happen in the future, just do a bunch of things, I guess, in real time, and they don't have to mess with time again. And there was no reason for his girlfriend to travel with them. Too many questions. But that's pretty much the whole movie. So it leaves you with a cliffhanger. The car, instead of it driving off in the road, has been retrofitted with these wheels that allow the car to fly. So that's that. To be continued.
Where we're going, Marty, we don't need roads.
Yes.
Classic, man. Nah, dude. Nice summary of the story of the film.
I jumped a little bit here and there, but I'm sure everyone's seen the movie, so.
Oh, for sure, dude. I'm pretty sure everyone has their favorite scenes. Son, I know you checked it out recently. What stood out to you about the movie?
What stood out to me was that everything that happened in the movie happened for a reason. Nothing was superfluous. Everything was planned out carefully when they shot the movie. Like when Lucas mentioned not the letter, the piece of paper that Marty had about the Save the Clock Tower. In the beginning of the movie, an old lady approaches him and his girlfriend when they're about to kiss, and she interrupts them with like a can full of coins that she's shaking at them. And she's asking for a donation to save the clock tower because it got hit by lightning back in, was it 55?
Yeah.
And so when you're first watching the movie and you see that, you don't really think much about it, but it actually plays an important role.
Yeah, it's quite subtle. And to your point, you see these sort of things being done in different movies, but it's so obvious. It's done in a way where it's like hint, hint, this is going to come up later.
Yeah.
You know, it's so obvious and it's so like, come on. It's like you watch something and immediately you're going to be like, oh, I'm expecting this in like 20 or 30 minutes from now. See how this plays out. But yes, how you were saying, it's just scenery. It's there. And when you think back, it's like, oh, you know, that's a nice little nod to the future, to what's coming, foreshadowing.
There's so many things that affect the past and the present that he does and says.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really cool. Like the whole, when Marty tells his dad, his young dad, when you put your mind to something, it can happen, or whatever that wording was.
Yeah.
And then that plays later on in the movie. So that kind of stuff really stood out to me when I was watching it. Just all these details that they were there for a reason. And as you said, they were subtle. So you didn't really think about it. But when they did come up, it's just like, oh, that's really cool.
No, dude, I love the whole story with him and his mom. Like, where he accidentally gets hit, you know, which was supposed to be his dad in that moment. And that's what kind of changes the course of history, where instead of nursing his dad after the accident, she's nursing Marty. And when Marty's like, "What do you call me, Calvin? It's the name written on your underwear." Calvin Klein.
I've never seen purple underwear.
Mm-hmm. That was so great. I also love that first interaction where they're in the diner. They're like, "McFly!" And then he's like, "Oh, I know that voice." And like, "Who's calling for me?" And he sees his dad reacting. That was a fun moment where he's kind of coming to the realization of like, oh God.
Yeah, and that happened. It had happened in the future, but it's the voice. Like, he recognizes the voice. Mm-hmm. So it's subtle. Like, it makes sense, you know?
That's a nice callback.
Yeah, it is.
Like someone was saying, it feels like it was well planned, well thought out, well written. And one thing I'm just going to bring up real quick, but we'll touch on later. There's the whole debate of my buddy G, you know, always would tell me, I try to get him to come on. He's been busy. He's got a lot going on. I respect it. But he would always tell me that he believed this to be the best trilogy of films ever made. Now, we could talk about that later, but I just wanted to float that out there, see what you guys think about it. We'll talk about it in a bit. How about you, Eric? What do you most remember about like the first Back to the Future film?
The main reason I always loved the Back to the Future films is I've always loved Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd is just a comic book character as an actor.
Yeah.
He's just so over the top. He does physical comedy so well. He's just such a funny looking guy. I just absolutely love everything that he's in.
And it's wild to think, right, that at one point when he was first approached with the script, he didn't want to do it, right? He always thought of himself as a thespian. I guess he had like a strong theater background. And he didn't feel as though being in this film was going to be something he really wanted to do. Now it's like we can't imagine anyone else but him having played that role. I feel like, yeah, like you mentioned, like who doesn't love Christopher Lloyd after that? Anytime I see him cameo in anything, like recently he was in Wednesday, I'm like, yes.
Well, he feels like he plays almost the same character ever since Back to the Future. Like just that crazy over the top dramatic or just like comedic acting.
Do you remember him as the villain in Roger Rabbit?
Yep. No, that's where I first remember seeing Christopher Lloyd was Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, what a character.
He terrified me in that movie, though.
Yeah.
Mostly when he became like a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Like his eyes popped out and you're like, oh God, he's a cartoon. Freaked the hell out of me.
Yeah, that transformation was wild. Oh man, just showing a clip of it now would just have people like, oh, so frightening. Yeah, I know there's that argument that he's been typecasted ever since, but I just love his performance. Like, I don't care. Like, him and Jim Carrey are such eccentric. They hold screen presence, which is amazing. And yeah, you know, just to touch on real quick, like Rick and Morty, the creators were fans of Back to the Future, and that's basically who those characters were mirrored after. And recently they did like a whole, I guess, live action opener. I never saw it myself, but I just remember hearing how Christopher Lloyd actually showed up and played like a live action version. I guess they slipped into a reality where everything was too real. And yeah, Christopher Lloyd actually got to play the character that was inspired by him, which is pretty cool.
I think the original short that Rick and Morty was based off of was literally just his animated version of Doc and Marty. I think it started off as a short animation about that.
No, that's really cool, man. You know, jumping ahead, I think, of course, everyone loves that rock and roll scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's like, yeah, I'm going to play some stuff. Well, he just hops in, starts playing guitar. And then, of course, he then goes off and he starts shredding the guitar in ways that people haven't heard before. And there's that one scene where he's like, hey, I got that new sound you were looking for. I forget the artist that he was supposed to be on the phone with.
Chuck Berry.
Yeah, so classic. And then, of course, he gets carried away, starts playing way more contemporary type of rock music.
Yep, it's a Van Halen solo, I believe.
Amazing, of all things.
They mentioned he's a big fan of Eddie Van Halen in the start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he's like, well, you guys may not like it, but your kids are going to love it. I think the one scene that also sticks out to a lot of people that is the most uncomfortable scene in the film. I don't know. I'm pretty sure little son had to close his eyes and be like, no, tell me it's not so.
I was blushing.
Oh my goodness. Blushing like a tomato, son.
Mm-hmm.
Marty, you know, he's such a charismatic, he knows what he's doing. Well, he's very assertive kind of a guy, which his father at the time wasn't. So, of course, he feels very drawn to him. And a little smooch occurs, which freaks Marty out, of course, because this is his mother. It's funny how she kind of reels back, or she's also very much, she can't put her finger on it, but she's like, this is wrong for some reason. It's almost like making out with my brother. And, of course, he can't tell her why. It's so odd, but he's like, yeah, let's go with that. Definitely like making out with a family member of sorts.
And speaking of, it was also brought up earlier in the movie where she goes, you know, I never sat in the car with boys. I never drank with boys, whatever. And fast forward, and he's actually seeing it firsthand in front of a car with a boy like him and drinking. So little nods, little foreshadowing.
Yeah, drinking and smoking. Yeah. And he's like, oh, you smoke too. You know? So funny.
I love the part where after that whole scene, Marty is like trying to resist. And she says, you're just like my mom. So her mom was a prude.
Oh, no.
I like how it's also implied that the way that originally George met her is because he's spying on her from the tree, and Marty saves him from the car that originally hit him. That was what their first meeting was.
Right.
He's a peeping Tom.
Yep. He's up in the tree with the binoculars.
Bird watching, as they said back in the day.
Yeah. The trees, as one does.
You know, looking for those. Woo. Yes, of course.
Subtle Mike.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like back in the 80s, that was such a huge thing, which you cannot do these days. None of those peeking into girls' locker rooms or through their windows, which was very common in all of those 80s comings of age high school films.
There was a trend with movies being raunchy during the 80s. So, of course, that also sort of trickled into Back to the Future. And a lot of things changed for the better to make the story better and just to get it approved. But Porky's, I think, is probably the biggest, raunchiest one at the time.
Like blanking on the film that would set the ratings. It was a trend at the time because European films were getting a little bit more risque in the material they were showing. Because, you know, it's all about what's going to drive you to the multiplex. What's going to get you in the cinema, the butts and seats, as they would say. And I remember that they were pushing more rated R content, I think in the 70s, to get more people. Because, you know, once television showed up, that changed the game. Oh, I could just watch stuff at home. I could watch sitcoms and, you know, you had Starsky and Hutch to get some fun comedy and action.
And you actually see some of that in Back to the Future. Because, you know, when he travels to the past, they're sitting at the table and his grandparents had just bought a TV set. So this is the first time when American families were watching things in the privacy of their own home, where like years prior, the place you would go was to the theaters. So television was a big hit and it lowered attendance for movie going. So something needed to change. You know, they had to come up with a new way to watch movies. And that's where Panavision and anamorphic lenses were used for getting a bigger picture that you cannot possibly get on your 4:3 television set.
Yeah, the aspect ratio is a big thing to go wider to feel bigger. Using more of your peripherals while you're in the theater adds a whole different dimension to it. Yeah, I think that was a big thing too. It's like to have that retro. So then there was so many movies like Grease and everything that had that view of the 50s, right? So I think it was very popular in the 80s too to have that retro throwback to when their parents were kids and to talk about how things were different. And I think that's why retro kind of works even today to kind of go back a few years, see a movie where the kids don't have cell phones, you're like, oh, what do you do? Yeah, I think that's why horror movies depend on that so much. Everyone's battery can't be at zero. But yeah, that was a really cool commentary that I think I appreciated older looking back and watching it. I was like, oh yeah, you can have that commentary and talk about the generational differences. Because I think before then, people would compare things to like, oh, before the Great War and after the Great War type of deal. But to talk about that different experience of, what you do in your spare time and how you would consume this content.
Yeah, that's a good point because how would you, talk about things? I guess that's where pop culture comes in. Like, that's all we have now. So there's no clear reference as to like a big event, it would be before and after, like how you mentioned, the Great Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like last week's, number one hit, last minute's most popular video on social media. Like everything just happens super fast.
Mm-hmm.
You can't pinpoint that to your life. If you talk about movies you watched when you were a kid, we discussed the Ninja Turtles. That was a staple. And, maybe it took another year or two for like another movie to come out. And you can pinpoint it to your life and more or less, say, oh yeah, I was like 9 years old when that came out. But you can't do that nowadays. Everything's just so fast.
No, that's true. Yeah, it meant so much to me when I was growing up, when even things like, of course, music, I feel like your entire being is moved, like your whole soul and spirit. That pinches a nerve and is a defining moment of like, oh, this is a song at prom, or oh man, this is a song when you broke up with the first girlfriend or whatever, or this is a song that came on when that was associated like as like a theme song of a film. That used to be a huge thing growing up, where you would have theme songs that would go with the movie. This is the song of the film. That would also help make those like huge billboard hits, or just really sit with you. Like a certain song comes on, people think 16 Candles, another song comes on, people think Breakfast Club. It's instant. I'm trying to think, do you know what that song would have been for like Back to the Future? Did it have a song like that? I can't recall.
Well, it had a main theme, the do 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 do. And I think Power of Love by Huey Lewis was written for it.
You are correct. That is the love song.
There we go. Yeah, the theme was incredible.
The theme is my favorite musical piece in that.
Yeah, I think we're hard pressed to find any new film where it comes on, like the new Superman theme. Like, who even remembers what that is? But we're all going to remember Back to the Future thing for generations. Like, all the new kids will know what that is too. It's such a great theme. If we could avoid legal copyright, we could play a sample of it. But yeah, it's the Power of Love. That's right. Yeah, I do remember that song showing up in the movie.
Yeah, I think it was written for the movie too. I think Huey Lewis wrote 2 songs for the film, and he also shows up in the film. Huey Lewis is the guy for when Marty McFly is doing the audition. He's the judge that tells him he's playing too loud.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, it's so dope.
I can't remember. I think it's like a megaphone. He kind of goes, it's like, you're too loud.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the guy.
That's so cool. Well, since we're going to dive into some Easter eggs or behind the scenes, there was a little drama going into the film. We all know Michael J. Fox being the star of the film, along with Christopher Lloyd being huge presence. But there was someone else, Lucas, I think you could touch on this, who thought he was the most important name on the ticket. And this was actually the actor who played the father, Marty McFly's dad.
Yeah, Crispin Glover, man. I love that actor. He has like a bad rep. And I think when he came out in, what was it, Charlie's Angels, he has like a cameo where he plays this villain type that sort of falls in love with one of the angels. And I don't know, to me, he was just a cool character. He was super cool. In his Back to the Future days, he was just, I don't know, I guess a hard person to deal with. He was eccentric. And there's a lot of videos of him when he's interviewed by talk shows and things like that. And he's a little out there. During that time, he just kind of weirded people out.
He weirded me out, that's for sure. Crispin Glover's always creeped me out. He is his voice, his face. His face looks so uncanny.
Yeah, he's quite distinct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when I first saw Charlie's Angels, I'm like, is that because you see him like clips Drew Barrymore's hair and starts sniffing it?
Yeah.
It's like that weird, like shrill, like, oh, you know?
Yeah, he got a high from that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was cool, man. That character he played, from seeing him as George McFly and for the 30-some years that, after the movie, and here and there you see him in other things. And then he was in a movie called, what was it called? Where he has a rat.
Oh, this sounds familiar.
This sounds really familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see.
I don't remember that being him, but the moment you described it, I'm like, oh, darn, I did see that film. I just can't recall his character or what it was about. But I remember being creeped out, like Eric would say.
I Googled it. Willard,
yes.
I remember the poster for it. And it's like, I never saw the movie, but I remember the poster, and it's him on the poster with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying, you have an idea of who he is based on his acting, of George McFly. So that's the only frame of reference you have because you don't know the person. So Willard comes out, and it's a dark film, and he has a rat. I'm not going to get into the whole movie, but it's really dark. So you see a darker side of him. And then after that, you have the Charlie's Angels character that he plays. So there's been like gaps in his career. I think he also does art or did art. So he's just a really hard person to sort of gauge.
From my understanding, it's almost like he's a passionate man.
He is.
He's a thespian. He is a man of his craft. I almost wonder if he's along the lines, well, I mean, Johnny Depp's got his own trials and tribulations, but I wonder if he's that kind of guy who also is like, I made it and I move on to the next thing instead of like, because I know Johnny Depp never watches any film. Allegedly, that's what he claims, that he's never seen a film that he's been in. So I wonder if he's that kind of guy. Because I could almost imagine he might be torturing himself in the theater watching, oh, I should have done this. Oh, why did you do that? No, that was a bad cut.
Maybe.
I could almost feel like he takes it to heart, his performance,
We're talking about the original Marty McFly actor, right? The one before Michael J?
That's Eric Stolz, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's shots in the movie with Eric Stolz still in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like when Biff gets punched, it's a shot of Eric Stolz punching Biff. Because if you look in the shot, like one of the shots right before it is one of the classic shots of Marty. It's a really cool camera angle where they really show how big Biff is as he kind of slowly towers over Marty, and you have Marty look up. But when you have the punch come in, the punch comes from much higher up than, like, it comes from about the same height as the actor playing Biff. And it's Eric Stolz throwing the punch.
Oh, I never noticed.
Yeah, there's a few shots that are still, but you wouldn't know because tricks of the trade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's touch on that real quick of like why the actor was switched. I remember it being a thing. I just forgot like what the reasoning was.
I was thinking of how to word it earlier, but he pulled a Ben Affleck before Ben Affleck did in Armageddon. So he would question, like, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Wouldn't Marty not know his new family? Because when he goes back to the future, like, he never lived through any of that.
Right.
He was caught in this dilemma with the character and reasoning and all that thing and asking too many questions. And I guess he was trying to take the role more serious, where they envisioned Marty as, more of a, not a goof, but more comedic timing. And Eric just didn't have that. And, Eric came to the same conclusion as them, allegedly, that he just wasn't fit for the role and maybe it should be played by someone with comedic talent. So after weeks of shooting, they had to recast and they got the actor they wanted from the get-go, but they had to wait. Well, they had to ask permission from his employers at the time, from Family Ties. So they agreed to lend him out as long as he completes his duties in Family Ties first before he does Back to the Future. So that only left the weekends.
Oh, that's right. He does speak on it. I remember seeing a documentary or behind the scenes where they're speaking about how exhausted he was. Because, yeah, he was pulling like double shift, basically working on both projects simultaneously, which is wild because that's also, unfortunately, early on. I think that was during the filming. during the middle of everything is when he actually found out already that he was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it was such a strain to do all of that and to already know that this is going to be something he's going to have to deal with the rest of his life. Yeah, it's crazy to think that he was diagnosed so young, you know, and the fact that he was already experiencing some slight symptoms and just it's one of those unfortunate things. I think it's why some people always avoid going to the doctor, you know, because you're like, oh, every time you go in, they give you bad news.
It's like, as long as I don't know, I don't have a problem.
Mm-hmm. The good old days, son. Ignorance was bliss. Almost wonder if like that's why he had such a huge boom early in his career, and then there was like kind of like a lull happen where he was like everywhere, and then you're wondering like what happened. I wonder if he was just had to really focus on okay, what I gotta do to make sure over the next few decades that things progress in a way where it's manageable.
Yeah, I don't really remember seeing him in anything else other than the trilogy Back to the Future. I mean, anything mainstream until, again, when he was in Spin City.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, yeah, I think because of Parkinson's and taking a toll on his life and just his quality of life. So, but he did give us those fantastic performances. Yeah, amazing.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we dive into the trilogy debate?
So Alan Silvestri, he did the score for Back to the Future.
That guy did the main theme.
Yes. So he also did the score for Predator. So there is cues in the Predator theme that come up in the Back to the Future theme. And it's identical. It's like the musical notes. Not the theme, just the cues. Like once you hear it, it's like, oh, every time you hear it, it's yeah, that's right. Back to the Future, Predator.
Nice.
Crazy.
Just amazing track for Back to the Future.
Just in case people wondering, yes, Lucas will be on those composers. I mean, we'd be doing late nights and he'll just be like going through the list of his favorite composers and just be playing tracks. And he'll give me that look in case if I don't recognize it, he'll just be like, Mike, shame.
Shame. Yeah, they had a recent, well, I mean, it's been a little bit now, but they had live viewing at the Hollywood Bowl with the live orchestra. So I got to see that. It was quite nice seeing it with a bunch of people in the open air, big screens with full-on orchestra playing the music to the whole film. So it was an experience. Quite nice.
Fantastic. Yeah, man. Yeah, I think it's always dope. And not every film can pull that off, right? We can just have a live orchestra run through it. I think those are always amazing things to kind of go and check out 100%. And speaking of, just to kind of quickly tie in, because I believe by the time we put this out, this other piece of content will already be out. There's someone that Lucas knows that is actively involved with engaging with a core fan-based audience with the gathering. Do you want to just touch on that real quick, Lucas?
Yeah, so this cool guy, his name's Eric. He along with a bunch of other Back to the Future fans and just hardcore, they have a love for the movie, the vehicles. Some of them have Deloreans that are decked out to look like the movie replicas. They have a few other members that they play the Marty character and they actually have the 4x4s. So it's nice when they managed to put the word out there over the years and just build a community of people that just yearly they show up to the Foothill Mall on the night when they did the whole Back to the Future time travel. So people gather up, they come dressed up as their favorite characters. DeLoreans come in, they reenact some of the scenes. And it's just a really nice thing to see in person and just to be, if you love the movie, I mean, you know, say it was anything that you loved and you got to experience it firsthand, just being there. Nothing else is like that. But he agreed to share some of his time with us this coming week. And hopefully we can pick his brain up and just discuss, maybe hear some insights. He, along with a bunch of the other members, have met with the actual actors and have got a chance to maybe ask them personal questions. So hearing those sort of things, I mean, I guess it's gold.
100%. Yeah. So definitely we'll have a link in the description to that conversation. Also in the end card, we'll probably add it to where you can click to watch that next after listening to this discussion. So be sure to check that out. Now, we got to sell this, Lucas.
Actually, if you don't mind me cutting in here real quick.
Do it, son.
There's one thing that we didn't go over, and it's something that I never really noticed back in the day until I rewatched it recently, just last night, actually. Marty's girlfriend, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah. She switches.
Yeah, I just didn't recognize her at all for some reason.
Yeah, it's a new actress in the second movie. Yep.
Yeah, second and third. So the original was Claudia Wells,
Yes.
and she had to drop out of the series because her mom had breast cancer. So she had to take care of her mom. And then that character was recast with Melora Hardin, but then she was too tall. So then they had to recast her again as Elizabeth Shue, who we know in 2 and 3.
Yeah, she's the first girlfriend in Karate Kid.
Oh.
Daniel's girlfriend in Karate Kid.
And the one cool thing they did after recasting her for the second movie is that, you know, the ending sequence of the first movie where Marty, he sees his new life with like a better home, better furniture, better family, and he has this new truck, and his girlfriend walks up to the driveway and they have like a little conversation. They reshot that sequence for the second film to play in the beginning with the new actress, Elizabeth Shue. So that way they can have consistency between the first and second film.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty cool.
It served as a recap.
Mm-hmm.
You're completely right. I guess if you never really noticed it, and it's not like it's an episode you're watching and then, you know, a minute later you're watching the second episode where you would notice that. This is years apart. So I guess it was easier to swallow where if they have that recap, you just don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought the movies flowed very well from one to another, 1 to 2, and then 2 to 3.
Well, especially, it's like, I don't think it was planned originally as a trilogy.
No, it was not.
It makes it work even more that it's like, oh, we're going to the future. And it's like, oh, it ends in a way that it sort of is a to be continued.
Yep.
Yeah, and how soon after did they do, like, because I know 2 and 3 were filmed back to back and they released 1 year after the next.
I think it was 89 and 90. Yeah, so it was 4 years after the first one came out. So Michael J. looks a little older for sure. Yeah, I mean, it was a nice way to introduce a new actress, but I really wish they would have kept Claudia. But, you know, bless her, took care of her mom.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a little bit more time, I mean, the original devised vehicle was not even a car, it was a fridge.
Yep.
I remember hearing about that.
And you had to go into a nuclear explosion. That's why Steven Spielberg did that for Indiana Jones 4. Because he was originally tied to Back to the Future.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's the reason they do that in the fourth Indiana Jones film.
Yeah, it's a nod to that. So yeah, they were supposed to travel to Nevada, a test site, and that was supposed to trigger the whole event. But they thought a bunch of kids would probably just go into fridges and lock themselves in there. So they decided to scrap that idea, and car just happened to come out during that time. That was pretty slick looking and nothing else like it. The DeLorean with the stainless steel look, it just seemed to be the right amount of cool or just a little out there. And that's what they went for.
Little did you know that after the movie came out, kids started stealing cars and driving at 88 miles an hour.
Back to the Future was the best thing that ever happened to the DeLorean car.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Because when it came out, the DeLorean was an infamously terrible vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. It had the look and like, okay. And then once actually people got their hands on it and started driving it, they're like, oh no.
It was really the gull doors, the gull wing doors, the opening up like that. Oh man, that was the coolest thing.
I don't think the cars originally came with the gauges reaching 90 miles an hour. So they had to make one specifically, like the gauge, not that the car actually did, but the gauge to read 88, because the vehicles didn't read 88.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, that is the best thing that could have happened to that car. I mean, you know, there's all this controversy from the DeLorean guy. The car takes his name from the creator.
Oh.
He was facing drug charges, I think, when the movie came out.
Yes.
Yay.
Along with the car being pretty much a disaster of a vehicle.
Yeah. And now this resurgence of the car coming back, purchased by a company, and now there's parts readily available. And, you know, people have an interest for this type of car and are ready to spend a little over $100K to modify a DeLorean to look like the movie replica.
It probably takes over a little over $100K to make a DeLorean a functional vehicle.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I thought you were going to say at first, so you could be able to drive it. This is how much you guys spent.
To make the DeLorean street legal for 2020s.
Oh man, that's wild. Yeah, so any other like special anecdotes from the film?
When I lived in LA, because I lived in Hollywood, I used to go to church at the place that they filmed the dance scene, Hollywood United Methodist Church.
Nice.
The gymnasium there is where they held the dance. They do refreshments after church every morning or on Sundays. And you'd have refreshments in the Back to the Future gymnasium. I think they still do the dance on occasion. I don't think it's yearly, but I know they do like reunion dances because of Back to the Future. And they have a gymnasium because it's also a private school as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of weird for a church to have a gymnasium, but
Nah, not when I went to school. Our church was held in the gymnasium when I was in high school. Yeah, we had service in there. It was hot. There was no central AC in that building. Nah, that's really cool.
If anybody wants to go see the gymnasium, you just have to go to United Methodist on Sundays.
There you go.
Good to know. There was a Back to the Future cartoon.
There was. I never saw it though.
I think I maybe saw one episode of it on like a pre-recorded, on like a VHS that I repped or recorded.
It was in the 90s, wasn't it?
There was video games too. Well, not tie-ins to the movie, but there were video games produced.
Yeah, it was one of those where they were like, it had been over a decade and all of us are barely finding out about it and watching it. I'm trying to remember the lineup. When I find the footage, I'll probably play what the whole lineup was at that time. But I remember seeing that lineup and as a kid saying, this ain't it, fam. This ain't it.
There are a whole bunch of 80s movies that they put as 90s children cartoons. A lot of them were R-rated too, because I remember the Toxic Avenger, kind of Captain Planet TV series. You had at least 2 or 3 Ghostbusters animated series. You had Beetlejuice, the animated series. I think there was a RoboCop animated series.
Yeah, there was a RoboCop.
It was bad.
I think it was the Toxic Crusaders.
Yep, Toxic Crusaders. I just, because that was the first time I saw it. It's like, oh boy. It's like, because I was way too young for Toxic Avenger. So my first experience with Toxie was the Toxic Crusaders. I was like, oh boy, this is the cool version of Captain Planet. And then I saw Toxic Avenger 15 years later, and you're like, what the how is this a children's show? Then again, RoboCop as a children's movie too, isn't like some of the hardest hardcore 80s violent movies. It's like, yep, children's properties. We can sell toys to them.
You know, I'll give Toxic Avenger a slide. And the Crusaders, right? That was the cartoon.
Crusaders, yeah.
I'll give that a pass just because they were thinking like, okay, mutated beings that save people. Okay, we got Ninja Turtles. That did well. What else do we have that's like that? And it was very fun. And I think there's a lot of characters that think were in the show, which there's going to be a new beat 'em up coming out. Son, Eric, we got to play that. That looks a lot of fun. I think Jeremy wants in on that too. Really fun looking game where they actually got some type of association with the animated show. I don't know if they got like the creators to be part of it, but they're trying to recreate the animated cutscenes to feel like the show, which is pretty cool. But I think they're doing it more like a motion comic, the way it's being animated.
Oh.
But I think at least like the opening cinematic, something's fully animated. I'm not sure what it is, but it is motion comic-y, so you don't get full animation, but they do go like pose to pose and they do transitions and stuff. So I'm like, oh, at least it's a step above static images, so I'll take that. And I think they managed to get some of the existing that are still around voice actors to come back, I think. So they're really trying to make it feel like a continuation of the animated show. But one thing I will say, full disclaimer, we will not be covering ever the new remake of Toxic Avenger.
I have yet to see it.
I hear it's the worst thing you could possibly imagine.
I've heard mixed things. I've heard a few good things, that it is a pretty fun movie, but it's completely different from the first one. And I mean, to be fair, there's no way you could make a true trauma movie nowadays. That would not go well in the public eye.
We are getting those weird Disney horror films rolling out. But I hear your point. If Jeremy was here, he could talk about it because he's seen all the Toxic Avenger films. and he told me, Mike, don't you dare ever watch these. he's like, I saw them, so the rest of you don't have to.
Yeah, I saw the first one, and I've seen some other trauma movies, but I was like, I only heard anything good about the first one. You're like, well, I don't need to see any of the others. And it's not like sequels usually turn out better.
True. Very true. So we're going to close the chapter on Toxic Adventure. Maybe we'll revisit in the future. But yeah, any other anecdotes you guys have about Back to the Future, the first one?
One little thing. I'll try and make it brief.
Okay.
So this whole thing started because two friends, Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis. Robert Zemeckis is the director and Bob the writer. He went to visit his dad, Bob, and he, I guess, happened to come across his dad's yearbook, and he found the picture of his dad in there, and his thought was, would I have been friends with my dad? And that sort of gave him this whole idea, and we eventually got Back to the Future from that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's true. I totally forgot to ask about, what was the whole inspiration behind Back to the Future? Why did the director want to make it? And also just to speak up briefly of who Robert Zemeckis is and the history of...
Prolific director, for sure.
Yeah, prolific director, but more importantly, the film school he came out of, his peers at the time, he knew Lucas and Spielberg. They had that kind of relationship. And I forget if there was like a collab, how it started, if they helped each other in any way at the beginning of their careers, or once one person took off, did the other kind of give a leg up in assistance to the other? I know there was some dynamic like that.
I think from what I recall, Lucas wanted to open the doors for them, right? So they wrote and directed this movie. I don't recall the name of the movie, but it did okay, but it wasn't a hit. So Lucas went ahead, helped them out with the next one. It wasn't a hit either. So they didn't want Lucas to give him a hand again because they wouldn't want to taint the relationship if they just couldn't come up with a hit. So they went ahead and did another project, and through their own steam, were able to start Back to the Future. It took years, but they were able to do it without Lucas's help. Or, I'm sorry, Steven Spielberg's help. I kept saying Lucas, but it's Steven Spielberg. So that's why the movie starts off as Steven Spielberg production, I think it is, or Steven Spielberg presents.
Yeah, Spielberg, man, hit after hit. I know people have maybe opinions of his latest work, but he made so many classics. I don't care, bro. Just keep making films until you can't anymore.
That's kind of been going on with all the like 80s, 90s directors. Like Ridley Scott's kind of a rough director nowadays. It's like, at no point do I see Ridley Scott's name on a movie and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be amazing. It's like, but Ridley Scott has so many classics that you're like, oh man, let him do it. Or I guess you could say even Francis Ford Coppola. And it's like Megalopolis was awful.
I haven't seen it, but that's my sentiment too.
Oh, it is hilariously bad.
I will say one other thing. I mean, there's countless and countless videos that people have done on Back to the Future, the lore, IMDb, bullet points. A lot of this stuff that we talked about is common knowledge, but there's some out there that really dive deep into symbology and conspiracy theories and tying in 9/11. I mean, if you watch them, take it with a grain of salt, but it's quite interesting, like how you can connect a few things and all that from just Back to the Future. So have fun.
Today you learned Robert Zemeckis did 9/11.
It talks about, Robert Zemeckis. It talks about Marty McFly as he's running down in part 2. Because in part 2, they redo what happened in part 1. So as the time machine travels and disappears in a flash, and then Doc screams in a triumph, and then in the background, you start seeing Marty McFly running, and he's wearing the black leather coat, blue jeans. There's a specific frame that it stops on, and he's kind of doing like the T-pose.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the scenery and just look at it symbolically, the fire streaks on the ground are meant to be the wires that the actor walks across. And it's not 9/11, it's a Twin Tower movie. So they're meant to be the wire that this wire walk. I don't know what the title for that is, but he walks across that. And he's wearing similar clothing. And he looks similar to Marty McFly. So all these little tie-ins. So there's quite a lot for you to consume.
The moment we said Libyan terrorists, I knew it was only a matter of time before we tied it to 9/11. So if everybody apologize, If you guys need a trigger warning, I'll have that flash on the screen right now. If you feel triggered, here's a helpline you can call. That film will always live on, man. Back to the Future is a classic. And, I stand with Zemeckis for always shooting down any and every attempt to try to do a remake. Because, no.
Well, so long as they're alive, they don't want any of that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I know the moment. I bet there's like a script they're going to just dust off and be like, rush order now. It's going to make the worst thing we've ever seen. Because it's going to be rushed to market like so many other things are now these days. Yeah, you just can't recreate that magic, man. Some kooky old dude hanging out with a young guy, you can't do that anymore. Catching his dad in the act of being a peepee Tom in the window, I don't know if that's allowed. The fact that he accidentally makes out with his mom, I just don't see that.
Accidentally happening.
Yeah, there's so many things, Lucas. I just don't think they could properly do a recreation of that film. And plus, like, I love the whole 80s with the 50s dynamic. Like I said, they were doing that a lot in that time. You had American Graffiti. You had so many films. Well, probably the only time I'll mention American Graffiti is it's in this context. But
isn't American Graffiti like the early 70s?
I think you're right.
Okay.
Because I know it's one of Lucas's first films.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back to when there was just that whole thing of young kids in the 50s making a throwback film to kind of highlight that era. But yeah, I think you're right on the year.
Well, a lot of the filmmakers too in the 80s grew up in the 50s. Like that was a big reason you had a lot of horror remakes of things like The Blob and The Fly. And as a lot of the directors grew up in the 50s.
And then was Thing 70s or 80s?
The Thing? That was the 80s. That was mid 80s.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a whole renaissance of like so many horror films. Man, I love those too. Growing up, I watched so many of those black and white 50s, The Day the Earth Stood Still, all that stuff. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Yeah, that stuff was fun. And then they do current remakes, and I just hate them. I hate all of them.
Yeah, it's like, man, the 80s remakes were so good, but man, our 2010s, 2020s remakes have not been living up to that.
Well, let's finish off with trilogy question you had.
The trilogy question. The age-old debate. Has there ever been a good trilogy in Hollywood? And we're going to answer that with a good friend of mine, G, once told me that he believed that the Back to the Future trilogy is perfection, as he would say. I am not sure if those were his words verbatim, but I'm paraphrasing. Perfection. So I'll pose the question to you guys. Do you guys believe that Back to the Future trilogy, one of the best, or if not the best trilogy ever made?
I would say it's one of the best. I probably wouldn't think it's the best, but one of the best for sure.
Yeah, I'm willing to throw it in top 3 or 4.
Very nice.
Top 5. It's definitely a top 5. That's for sure.
Okay. How about you, son?
My memory's a bit fuzzy. So what other trilogies were there? Like, what were the other top 4 for you, Eric?
Well, mine is always going to be Lord of the Rings. It's like,
okay.
Lord of the Rings for me is just, that was just the perfect trilogy. It came out once every year. You got hyped for it.
Hell yeah.
So it kept that hype going as well, because you knew exactly when next year, every December was a new Lord of the Rings movie.
It's a Christmas tree.
Man, Two Towers, Eric. When we talk about Two Towers, we're going to go off. That's all I'm going to say.
And then I'd say between 2 and 3, between Back to the Future and Indiana Jones.
Ooh. Okay.
Because, man, it's those are both fighting between 2nd and 3rd place for me. And then 4th place would be Star Wars, the original trilogy.
I'm just going to say, just for the record, yeah, there were only 3 Indiana Jones films.
Yep. And let's pretend there were only 3 Star Wars films, too.
That's how I feel. I know there's a good friend of ours, Matt Cordero. If he ever hears this, he's going to show up to my house and he's going to tell me, Mike, we got a few words to exchange. So I think we got everybody's thoughts on Back to the Future as a trilogy. I'm really weary if they ever remake this stuff because I know Zemeckis will have no involvement whatsoever. So it's going to be really tough. And it was his idea. It's not like you can go back to like a novel like Jurassic Park and base it off of something like that. This was really his creation. I feel like his film. I feel like out of everything Zemeckis did, I feel like these were his movies. We have our thoughts about Beowulf and Polar Express and stuff like that, but Zemeckis still huge impact. So I'm not going to speak ill on him whatsoever. I feel like he really had a huge impact in our childhood, released a trilogy of films that are near and dear to all our hearts. And on that note,
I just want to mention that since we did touch on Michael J. Fox and Parkinson's disease, he does have a foundation.
Yes, he does.
Where they research and ultimately try to find a cure for Parkinson's disease. So if anyone has maybe some disposable income, if you want, you can go to michaeljfox.org and donate.
Yeah, just want to thank everybody for tuning in, checking out this discussion. Many more to come. We have a lot planned, so be sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bells, be alerted about when we got something else coming out. And yeah, we're going to have some discussions of us coming out soon, expressing our thoughts more on the actual state of the industry. So stay tuned. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out the next one.